Gentlemen, and welcome to our Saturday special edition. My name is Dennis Jar, and we are broadcasting from our headquarters Atlanta studio. In tonight's edition, we're going to be dealing with oral history of Liberia. That's the oral history of Liberia from 1963 to 1971. My guest is Donald John Cooper. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. Our guest again is Mr. Donald John Cooper. He's going to be joining us via phone all the way from Maryland. Mr. Cooper, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. We are glad to have you. Tonight, Mr. Cooper is going to share with us what he saw. Okay, this is history that he lived when he was born, what he saw. And he's going to be accounting, he's going to be narrating for us oral history, what he called through his lenses. That will be from 1963 to 1971 for tonight. This is the beginning of a brand new series on Liberian oral history. We at Focus on Liberia, we educate, we elevate, promote all things Liberian. So oral history meaning telling by mouth what he saw, what he witnessed, what he heard, and what he felt. Oral history enables people to share their stories in their own words, with their own voices, through their own understanding of what happened and why did it happen. Again, we want to welcome Mr. Donald John Cooper, who was born and raised right there on Snapper Hill in Monrovia. Mr. Cooper is the only surviving member of the Monrovia Brothers, that group, a musical group in the 1980s. Mr. Cooper, once again, welcome to Focus on Liberia. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jar. Thank you.
And just briefly to our viewers who want to know a little bit more about you, please tell something, one or two about yourself to share that you can share with my listening audience.
Thank you. Like you said, my name, I was born in Monrovia on Snapper Hill in the latter 50s. In the latter 50s to a family whose surname I carry, Cooper. And we are the Coopers of Snapper Hill. And the original name of Snapper Hill before it became Snapper Hill was Rock Town, because it's built. Anybody who knows Monrovia knows Snapper Hill, Ashland Street, Carey Street, Benson Street is all on a hill. It's on a hill of rocks, all the way to the American Embassy. All those places are rocky, hilly areas. When you come from Waterside, you got to climb the rocks to go up Snapper Hill. So I was born there. I started my primary education at the St. Patrick's Elementary School, formerly called St. Patrick's Elementary School, which by the 50s became St. Patrick's High School. But then it moved on to Sincor, Capitol Hill, to what people know to be today, I think, Stella Maris or something like that. I'm not sure.
Stella Maria.
Okay, yeah, Stella Maris Polytechnic to do that. That used to be St. Patrick's High School, but I started my primary education at St. Patrick's Elementary School, which today can be known as Cathedral High School. So I started there from 1963 until early 70s, when I matriculated to St. Patrick's High School on Capitol Hill, Sincor. And from there, that's what I remember. But that early part of life so far, I mean, when it comes to where I come from and who I am, and I come from a family of 6 brothers with a mother of 7. There were 7 brothers one adopted foster brother, and a mother and a father. My father was one of the first members or administrators at the bank, at Citibank. What we know today as Citibank in America used to be called the Bank of Monrovia.
Mm-hmm.
And my father, that's where my father worked. By the time I recognized I was born in that family, that's where my father worked. And it was through that job. And my mother was a nurse that graduated from Doorside Medical Center. That's where she got her nursing training. When Firestone had just started in Liberia, they had, at that time, Doorside Medical Hospital used to be the next principal of big medical center in Liberia after Government Hospital, where everybody was born. But I was born in Doorside Harbel, and then my father and my mother brought me to where my father and his family lived, right on Snapper Hill, where everybody knows to be right down the road on the corner of Snapper Hill, Ashman Street, and Roberts Street. Roberts Street stops right to my grandfather's property, and that's where I was born, right on that hill, and that's where I went to school. Where any Liberian who went to Catholic St. Patrick's Elementary School during that time, I'm sure they know my family because my father was a prominent Roman Catholic.
Okay.
And Catholicism is my religious affiliation. Mm. And I grew up with my brothers and my brothers, no sister, but a lot of cousins, female cousins, and and that's how I grew up.
Tell us about the Monrovia Brothers that you were part of.
Well, Monrovia Brothers was a conception that I had perceived when it came to my musical career in Liberia in the early 80s, late 70s and early 80s, as a result of a investor from Ghana, a producer, a music producer from Ghana, Faisal Helwani, that moved his musical studio to Liberia as a result of an arrangement with PRC member Jeffrey Batu to move his studio there to record Liberian artists. And that's where I formally, after I was asked by my producer, Mr. Helwani, to coin a name for the group that I had. And I just told him, hey, my man, I'm born in Monrovia, so just call me the Monrovia Brothers. And I had a team that carried that shared with me that platform, and that team was comprised of the late great Tikpan Nimlin. I think everybody knows about him, what people call him the Plankentan Man, all that stuff. So before he became the Plankentan Man, we were the Monrovia Brothers because we were a team.
What was some of your music?
Well, my first album that I recorded, the first album we recorded there was entitled Alive and Well. So, and that album carried a lot of songs. In fact, I was just checking my files, and I have 3 songs that I wrote, produced, and performed on that album along with Tikpan that I personally wrote. And in fact, it was an album that had a 6-track. It was 6 tracks, but out of the 6 tracks, I was able through my affiliation with Faisal Helwani, who was a noted West African producer Lebanese, but he was born in Ghana. So he had produced many notable groups from Ghana. Right. And then when Jeffrey Batu brought him to Liberia, and I became one of the session musicians in the studio. So Fatu Givla, all those people, I played and arranged a lot of the music. Caesar Gato, all those people in the early 80s. But on my album, I recorded 3 songs and I copyrighted it with the largest performing rights organization in the world called Broadcast Music Incorporated. And 3 of my songs.
There was one that was famous. Which one is that?
Well, everybody liked football, and that time George Weah was too. So I created the original IE song, Sunshine Yellow Boys, How We Love You. I wrote that song. I arranged it, everything, and then people performed it on the album. IE, and another song in English is called, I call it Living on Time, but in I think Crew or Bassa, the interpretation it has in the dialect vernacular is Dewe Conti. And then another one called Young Girl. If you want to check it out, you go to BMI you go to BMI website, you'll find IE on a BMI work number 621150. Living on Time or Dewe Conti is called 887. I mean the BMI work number is 887211. And Young Girl, the BMI work number is 1739266. So these are all.
Can you just for the to make for recollection? Can you say something? You know how that song went? The one I say, Young Girls.
Well, I would love to do that, but that's not how I do my professional work. Mm-hmm. I promise you I will do is one of my friends that have visited Liberia that lives in Oklahoma. He visited Liberia when I was in the studio doing that work, and he bought all those compositions and brought it to America, and he still has it. He promised me that he's going to send me a link to download it, and the next time I meet you, I will play it for you. I mean, I will just play it for you to hear at that time what kind of work I did. Right. But to perform it here, not
perform. I just wanted the words that went with it. What else?
Well, I wrote Young Girl based out of an inspiration from my niece at that time, who's about 48 years old now in America here in New Jersey, because she was attending convent at that time. And just like when we were kids, all the type of little what we call children's songs that we all used to develop.
Okay.
And I watched her attitude and some of the songs she used to sing that she came from school with, and I thought about it, and I thought a lot about her attitude and how she would grow up, and what were the things young girls, little girls of her age, that growing little titties coming, what they were thinking about and how they acted, and that's how I got the inspiration, and I put the words together. I just call it Young Girl. Call it Young Girl.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are in conversation with Mr. Donald John Cooper. He's going to be telling us oral history of Liberia starting 1963. So, Mr. Cooper, let's get into it. In our first session here, we want to discuss President Tubman era, but starting with 1963. But before that, we have a little background that you want to give, which you call the Rocktown political machinery. Let's start with that.
Okay. The Rocktown political machinery is a phrase that I was introduced to by Professor Twan Rile. former immigration commissioner under Talbot in the latter Talbot years, and a former political resistance to the Tubman regime. He wrote a book somewhere in the 80s. Don't quote me on this, but I want you to do the research. But I think the title was "The Love of Liberty," written by Professor Tuan Red. Have you read that book?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Okay, you're familiar with it, but I read it in detail. In fact, I used to even have a copy because that's the type of man I am. I love to read. So I had a copy, and what I learned from Tuan Red's experience and compared it to the proximity of some of the situations that happened with him that he explained in the book to where I lived when I was growing up. It was just right down the hill from me. And that includes how he was subjected to military torture and debasement by the Tubman regime. At that time, the time I'm talking about, the executive mansion didn't used to be to the place plenty of people know to be executive mansion today. And when that happened to Tuan Red, I wasn't living, but my father had told me because I have an uncle who was also imprisoned with the Coleman, William David Coleman group. I think you have heard about William David Coleman. Have you heard about him?
Right, yeah.
Okay. When President Tubman put those politicians that were part of the radical wing, like the Bernie Sanders wing of the True Party, but they were stationed in Clay Ashland. So Clay Ashland was the place that E.J. Roy took that section of the True Party and carried it and became the leader of it, President E.J. Roy. So President David Coleman, all those people were all people that grew up under, since E.J. Roy used to live there. And that's where that faction of the True Party started. In fact, because that's where he created the True Party, because in Liberia before that, it used to be only Republican Party. I don't know how many people know about that, but the older boys and the historians and all of them know but what I'm saying. And that's where they created the True Party, and they used to operate out of there. And they were a problem to the likes of Joseph Jenkins Roberts, James Springsteen, Daniel B. Warner, all that, but they were all in the same Congo, what are called the Congo people political machinery. And most of them used to live right in Monrovia, right around that particular place. Today, if we go there, I can show you where President Barclay got a house that he built. That's where he was. That way he was put under house arrest before he even moved onto his farm. So President Barclay, Joseph Jenkins Roberts, I can show you Joseph Jenkins Roberts' original house right on Ashmont Street. I can show you the first. If I went there, I can show you the building that used to be the Joseph Jenkins Roberts' first house, and later on became the first executive mansion before it moved on Ashmont Street. Mm. So the people that constituted the Rocktown political machinery were the politicians, the Congo politicians that lived in that vicinity, because the whole Liberia today we know, and up to today is still controlled by the political establishment in Montserrado County, in Monrovia. Hmm. So let nobody tell you, Tubman came to Monrovia from Harper as a lawyer. Tubman only had to become part of that political machinery that created the political picture of what Liberia was. So they were the ones that controlled the politics, they controlled how the social life went, how the economic life, and all that type of stuff. I'm not saying they weren't businessmen from Sino, but even if you came from Sino, as people like the Grigsby's, the Ross, all those people that wanted to be in politics in Liberia. You had to come to Monrovia to be part of the Monrovia establishment for people to know you as a great senator from Sino, or you know what I'm saying, ambassador, and all those type of things. Right. So that whole structure and how the politics of Liberia happened, and what it designed on the type of standards it created for political practices were all established by that group of politicians that lived right in Monrovia, there from Waterside coming up the hill down to that's where all the great Liberian politicians that were in our vicinity they lived. And because they
go ahead.
Because they were all members of either the Episcopal Church or the Methodist Church or the Baptist Church, and all members of the Masonic class of Liberia, that became the structure of the Rocktown political machinery. So Tubman just came and melted in it, even though we knew he was from Cape Palmas. But later on, everybody knows Tubman to be, but Tubman is not really from Monrovia. He's from Harper, Maryland.
And why Rocktown? Why the name Rocktown political machinery?
Because Rocktown was the original name of Snapper Hill.
Okay. So you mean
and the reason why
live around there?
Excuse me?
All those people that were part of the establishment live around Rocktown.
Majority of, when you hear Dennis's, even the woman today who is the woman today who is the agriculture minister of Liberia, that where her family come from. We all come from between CWA and down to where they got that church. What's the name of that church? Presbyterian Church, all the way up. Yeah, we all come from
what was their belief? What was their philosophy? What identified them? This Rocktown political machinery.
Well, the broad practices of the antebellum America, political and social practices of the antebellum era of America. Because remember now, weren't they free slaves that came and settled in Liberia?
Yeah.
Okay. But that doesn't mean that there weren't powerful political aborigines that became part of them, because the great professor from the Gribble tribe, the Crew tribe that they call Professor Plaino Wallow. Have you ever heard about him?
Yeah.
The great P.G. Wallow, who was a graduate of Harvard.
Yeah.
The great D12. All these people became part of that same Rocktown political machinery, even though they were aborigines, but they all drank beer together and they all went to they all went to the Masons. They all went to the Masons meeting together.
Right.
So they formed what became the political establishment of what Liberia today. Even today, you can see the remnants of the way they ran Liberia. You see what I'm saying?
How they ran Liberia, and how is that visible today?
That's a big one. But the major thing that they ran Liberia on, that today, up to today, I resist, and my father resisted, and my grandfather, that was made my grandfather to leave the Methodist Church and go to the Catholic Church. It was just like only brother who, if you didn't know me, I didn't know you, I'm not going to recommend you to the Catholic people to send your son to school. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm not going to recommend you to go to CWA. You know what I'm saying? And they ran Liberia like it was a plantation, and most of the Aborigines. That's why the effects of the backwardness of Liberia still remains today, because if they were concentrated on education and us living a life of real true, since they claim that Liberia was built on Christian principles, but the practices of that so-called Christian principles they claim, I don't adhere to it, and I abhor it. That's why ignorance is so great in Liberia, because there's no precedency that I have noted in Liberia. Besides William Tolbert, there's no presidency that I see concentrated a lot of the GDP on education. And that is the greatest cancer Liberia has, education.
Right.
This is just a personal view now. I'm not telling you this is what I personally believe, because
definitely
I who's speaking to you, I'm not a college graduate, but I come from a very, very intellectually capable family that have contributed to Liberia, that today, one of Liberia's greatest doctors that served with Dr. Toba, Liberia's first doctor, a crewman who became Liberia's first medical doctor. And after Dr. Toba, my uncle Nehemiah Henry Cooper was one of Liberia's foremost medical prize that we can talk about. Even in America here, you come and ask about him, they will tell you. If you read the review from white people who were his patients when they were living in Liberia, you come back and tell me whether they had any bad thing to say about him. And I come from a family that was not very, very political. Only my grandfather's older brother was in politics, because he served as the...
Mr. Cooper, you talk about it. I still want to get one last thing from this Rocktown political machinery, and it was like it
was like a Mason club,
right? How did it permeate? How did it last up to today, as you said? And because it was like the elite mainly of the settler stock doing this. So how come now native everybody just part of it? How did that survive?
It was dominated by the elite settler stock, but I didn't tell you, say there weren't powerful aborigines who were also part of it. Today, if you go to Liberia, what we know as the old Chase Manhattan Bank. Do you know that? Right there in Monrovia, on the corner, of Randall and Macklin Street. Randall and Ashland Street.
Yeah.
That building, the property that is owned by a crewman called Bufflin David, Jake Bufflin David, who was a big Episcopal church man. And you know how many settlers were in Episcopal church, and Bufflin David had land. So Bufflin David was also a big man over his 4 crew people. You know what I'm saying? But he became a lord over them. So Bufflin David, when I'm talking today, Bufflin David is almost like a Congo man.
Right. So now, how did we also had the presidency of Samuel Doe and now George Weah, and you are saying this Rocktown political machinery continue up to today?
Yes. It continues up to date today with the concept of how to run or to run a effective government.
Okay.
The problem we have today in Liberia is that has sort of the cancer in the Rocktown political machinery is because of buddy. They make corruption to be something that today affects the entire Republic of Liberia. That's why the civil service, even if you carry a letter or you carry something that will even pay your taxes, you got to bribe somebody. That thing is a legacy. It's a legacy of bad government from way back.
Thank you.
That's why I mean, but up to today, even in Weah, but Weah doesn't know it. They just know that the only way to run government to be big shot and to be big man over people. And according to my own learning in life, a leader is actually a servant.
Right.
A leader is not a lord. He's actually a servant.
Right.
But people people misconstrue the practices. That's why I'm not the type of Christian that will go stand on the pulpit, but I know the works of the great man called Jesus Christ. So it's from that lenses that I got, because I was brought up in a Christian family and I understand Christian dogma or Christian theology a little bit, not as a preacher, but in a very strict and real sense.
Thank you.
Because I do my research. So that's why I think the Rocktown political machinery, I personally and few other Liberians who know the historical background of Liberia, you can see the same thing happening, because corruption up to today has not even stopped. I mean, why is that?
And I see why you call that, you said the Rocktown political machinery is the progenitor of modern Liberia political life.
Of course, my friend. How to be a big man instead of being a servant of the people. And that is not what I grew up believing, because my family wasn't too political. My family was either my father was a banker, my uncle was one of Liberia's greatest doctors, and my other uncle. Today, if you go in Congo Town, if you hear any road called SD Cooper Road, that's my father's oldest brother. My father is next to him in age. Biological brother, one mother, one father. Their mother was a Gola princess, the daughter of the great Gola chief they call Jamale Johnson. Have you ever heard about that in history before?
Jamale, yeah.
Jamale, yes. Is my mother. That's my grandmother's father. That's why I have a link to the people from Colma. Ellen Johnson, you see, is my father's first cousin. My grandmother. Yes, we are from definitely. But my grandfather was a Congo boy, not very educated, but he was a military man, and he married Chief Jamale's daughter, who is my grandmother. Good. And my grandmother used to be. They were the first students of the school they call Swing not Swing, Bromley. Yeah. You ever heard of Bromley? Yeah, Bromley Mission.
The girls'
they were
mission.
The first. Okay, Bromley. My grandmother, they were the first students of Bromley. When she graduated from there, then she went to Senegal to learn nursing, and from Senegal she continued on to Sorbonne University in France.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing with Mr. Donald John Cooper, and you can see his family pictures there. We are showing some of your family pictures, and you see little John right there. And we are discussing oral history. So let's begin now. After your birth, it's 1963 to 1971.
Okay. The reason why I put 1963 is when you look at the biological makeup of man, only few men can remember from 4 years up. Yeah. Only few men. And I'm one of those few men. I can remember 4 years, from 4 years old up to today. The reason being, not that I'm so clever, but that's how God made me. Mm-hmm. There were certain events that happened in my life, and I grew up as a kid that was very, very, very observant.
Yeah.
I was never the first of my class, but I was never the last among my classmates. I was very observant. When Queen Elizabeth came to Liberia, that memory still lives in my head, because my mother took me and my other brother. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. The reason why I remember 4 years old is because I remember things when I was a little boy. I remember Snapper Hill, Jelly, how I'm staying in America today, and I know my neighborhood right now. That's how I remember. Snapper Hill. And one time you and I had a conversation, and I told you, well, I know you didn't take it serious, but if I'm blindfolded and you took me by my hand and tell me, Mr. Cooper, we're on Ashburn Street now, and I asked you, are we walking north towards Ducal Palace, or are we walking south towards E.J. Road building? Every corner we reach to, if I touch the building, I will tell you what is the intersecting street. With being blindfolded, that's how much I remember. I remember my country. You know what I'm saying?
That is profound. So let's start from 1963 now. What do you remember?
What do I remember about what?
From 1963 to 1971.
I remember when Queen Elizabeth came to Liberia. That was in 1963, and I remember most of the inauguration, President Tubman. When the people dancing and the global war dancer, all the assembled, because it used to be big celebration when they say President Tubman inauguration. That was no small something in Monrovia those days. A holiday, and all the procession and all the top military bands, when they be drilling, they got to come up Atmosphere Hill, and I was always part of the crowd that were watching, either with my big brother then or with my mother. But my father was always working, and my father's working place was just right down the road from me. You know what I'm saying? Though I had family restrictions to know how far to go, but that's where I started to learn to ride weed. You know what they call weed?
Yeah, the bicycle tire.
The bicycle tire with the iron to the back, and you'll be riding in Sour, Texas. That's where I learned to ride all those things, right on Snapper Hill. Because those were the only few places that had concrete from there to Broad Street and all those ones. Before they even built that big church on Broad Street, the Trinity, they call it what? Trinity Cathedral, right?
Yeah.
I saw those buildings built. Even the Catholic Cathedral, I saw the beginning of it when it was built. Because the original Catholic Cathedral, I used to serve among the altar assistant with the father, with my big brothers, and I used to serve as a little boy, holding the candle. We go to benediction. Yeah. So that's how much I know that part of Monrovia or Liberia.
So let's talk about the administration of Tubman.
So Tubman, I got to learn more about Tubman in the 70s. Everything I knew in the 60s, my literary standard wasn't very much up to that, so I couldn't read bigger books. But from the early 70s, I started to read men like G. Henry Andrews, who wrote a book called The Plot That Failed, not even knowing that one of the characters in that book was my uncle, my oldest auntie's husband. But I never knew that he had gone to central prison before. I never knew that all those things, and I never knew about a whole lot of stuff. But my father was a history buff that used to sit us down and talk to us. And sometimes when we're in the car going to the farm, and our farm is where they got Corma today. So when we're going to the farm, we got to pass Waterside to cross Bartown Bridge and all that. But my father used to explain stories and say, you see that place where the Lebanese people living right to Bartown? He would tell us stories about how at one time there was a Caribbean man who used to sell candies under his house. Like Witter Market, right?
Yeah.
But that man was a man who had what we call in America IRS problem or tax problem.
Yeah.
And the government wanted to collect money, but he was a guy too. A little he used to pay his debt, but then the big people for the same corruption, the way they used to do, they didn't like him because he really didn't take nonsense from whether he's big man or not. So he had a problem with them, and Tubman sent the forces to get him, and he'd be there, he's not getting out of the house. That's why today we have a story of a man called Sweet Candy. Ask any old Liberian that know about Bartown. By the time you cross Bartown or Johnson Tucker Bridge, right there they got Lebanese people got a spare parts. Some stores there. That where the house of Sweet Candy used to live. I never met Sweet Candy, but in my father's time when they were growing up, that was one of the serious problems. Almost then, when I was on Snapper as a small boy too, I learned about the great Yakpa Wuro. Have you heard about the Desperado?
Right, I heard that story. And give me more on that story that he was finally caught and killed.
Yeah. Yakpa Wuro was just a man working for Firestone too, a tapper. Okay. And there was some problem, and I think he killed his wife, and they sent government troops to go collect him. But before they could collect him, he had already killed 5 or 6, 7, 8 people. Those days, the most popular newspaper or daily that we had in Liberia was called the Daily Listener.
Yeah.
Before the Liberian Star, it was the Daily Listener, and all those things. As a small boy, we used to like reading. And I was not too bad in school. And I came from a family, though they were not in politics, but they very much kept alive around me a whole lot of information. Like we could just grab a newspaper. You could just grab a newspaper, and because you knew how to read and write, you will understand maybe not the big terms, but when there was big terms, I just get to my pa, and my pa would explain to me what it means. So these are some of the things by which I learned. Right. And I got to know about
Yakpa Wuro.
Yeah. So Yakpa Wuro, what happened? After he killed, they sent the government troops to go get him, but before they could get him, it was a couple of days. It was almost something like how you have some of these cases in America here where they got they got somebody that killed a whole lot of people and they sent government troops to get them. Before they could catch Yakpa Wuro, shit. That wasn't easy, buddy. And I remember the day that they put in the newspaper that they had killed Yakpa Wuro. And still, I started watching television, maybe in 1964, because we had a television in our house. So G. Henry Andrews, before he became minister, I think G. Henry Andrews was a man that was practicing journalism just the way you do now. Mm-hmm. So G. Henry Andrews were the people that used to read the news and give us the information and all the things. And then what my pa would read in the newspaper, he would come and explain to us. Or my mother, wherever she read, she would tell us what was the development. And we always had radio. Radio those days was the major means of disseminating news to the population. Yeah, radio.
Exactly. So what was the because you talk about the ragtime, you talk about corruption. We also talk about like you already mentioned about Coma. What were some of the things? Let's talk about corruption those days. Favoritism, putting people in government that How was things like?
Yeah, but at that time we didn't call it corruption.
Okay.
Because it was practiced. It was practiced by those who ran government. Most of the people weren't educated to know that government had something called corruption, but corruption was there. Today, when you hear sometimes some one Congo man, the amount of property he got, you think he barely got it because he went to the family and they saw him in the place and he paid the taxes and all that. And every year he was paying taxes. Hell no. And not how Liberia ever ran. Only few people were paying taxes. Few people had the opportunity to go to school. And some of the great chiefs from Sino, Maryland, Grand Judah, all those people, the more they became absorbed by the ragtime political machinery, they became more powerful kings and chiefs in the interior. So as a result, when you go in the interior, when you get that they man family and they tell for them men to do. That's where all that stuff comes from. They all learn that corruption because the powerful native chiefs too, they were all part of some time in the history, they were all part of slavery too.
Yeah.
That's what people don't know. But I know because I have done my research. And some of the people that today will call that, President King sold to This place here, some Fernando. You think the soldiers just always rally that way and that they could know? Because my great grandfather on my mother's side, when I read from one of the very good history of Liberia, which I will recommend to you, there's a Loma guy, a Loma academic called Telewoda. He wrote a very beautiful history about Liberia after more than 10 years of research. He wrote a very beautiful history of Liberia that I recommend for any Liberian. I recommend for any Liberian to go read. But it's called the hello.
Yeah, I'm listening.
I think it's called don't quote me on the title, but just go and look for go to Amazon and look for Telewoda. It's called the history of Liberia from 18 something to I think up to Samuel Doe. I mean, no, not Samuel Doe. To Samuel Doe. If you read that history and you compile it with other historians that have written things about Liberia, you get to see a better picture of what Liberia really is and how it has been evolving. So corruption is to me, just my own personal observation. Corruption in Liberia is not a Congo man disease. It is a disease that the Congo man employed into the fabric of the political structure of Liberia just because of that nonsense they call the Masonic craft and all those type of things.
So let's talk about other things that were. Is the person you're talking about called Joseph Telewoda?
Telewoda.
Oh, Telewoda. I thought that the years the locals have eaten. But let's go to other side things that were happening.
Exactly.
Let's go to.
In fact, you did call it the correct title of that book. The year the locals have eaten. Go and read that book.
Right. Let's go to other things that were happening in music, in sports, in entertainment, and other things that were happening around that time.
Okay, when it comes to arts and culture, the book I recommended to you for my uncle. Okay? My uncle in the 30s. Right. In the 40s, in the 40s, just before he graduated from CWA in 1944, and by the time up to the time he graduated to come to the States in, I think, 46, my uncle used to play for a group, a musical group. He used to play clarinet for them. Back in those days, they used to call them the Greenwood Players. The Greenwood Players, remember that. The Greenwood Players were just like in modern times you have the Monrovia Brothers, you have any other band. The Greenwood Players used to play. That time, some of the biggest places they used to play was, Mama Reina. You know where Mama Reina is?
No.
Okay. If you know where FDIC, the old Bank of Monrovia, when you're on Randall Street trying to go down Waterside. Okay, that little front street that crossing over the bridge, right over there. Those big buildings.
You really get that whole map in your head.
Well, I mean, how can a man forget his mother? Monrovia is my mother.
And let me announce our phone number so people can call in. People who were born in the 50s to interact with us, and other people that want
I only telling you what I know. So yeah. I told you I'm not an historical authority, but if you're talking about what I think I know about Liberia, most especially because this whole Liberia was really Monrovia. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the bad thing when I take a look back. That was some of the bad things that the government of Liberia, the original government, even up to today, that's why it's doing.
Okay. If you want to join the conversation, please call the number 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403. Go ahead, Mr. Cooper.
Where was I?
Right. You said Monrovia, is Liberia. Really, Liberia is just Monrovia.
Yeah.
That has been the problem.
Originally, Liberia, the Liberia that I know, man, come on, man. We know we had other. In fact, the time I started growing up, we didn't have no 9 counties. We had 5 counties and 3 territories. And 3 provinces.
Yeah.
We have 5 counties, and low territories, along with 3 provinces. That time there was no Grand Gita. There was no Grand Gita. There was a Maryland, but there was no Grand Gita, and there was no Nimba County and Bon County.
And Lofa.
Ask anybody who really know the history of Liberia, like Professor Brewer and other people that may be older than me, they will tell you.
Yeah.
When I was a small boy and they say the name of the county, we couldn't say 9 counties because we didn't have 9 counties at the time. I started growing up as a low boy. When we were coming up to the 60s and the 70s, Tubman is the one that broke up the country into all the extra counties. President Tubman. So President Tubman did contribute a lot to Liberia. One of the good things that I know he contributed to Liberia is a Gola man who come from way Bombay Hill, or how you call it, a Vine man or a Loma man who come from there and even marry a girl from San Quentin.
Okay.
You know where I call San Quentin?
Yeah, I know San Quentin. San Quentin is in Sino County.
My friend, I just told you do your homework on that one. I just telling you how some of us know Liberia. So when people say Sano, I just say San Quentin, and there are certain people who really know Liberia. They know straight what I'm talking about. When I say San Quentin, you can't get me to point them out. Hell no. I mean, you don't know your country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the good thing about it, all my life before I came to America, when the war happened, I got to know Liberia in depth. Because I went to all the doggone counties you can think about. I even been in your county. I used to live in Greenville, right in Vice President Green's younger brother house. And he was married to the city mayor of Greenville that time, called some kind of Graceville woman.
All right.
So growing up, I only knew about Monrovia until I became a big man. When the war happened, before I got to know why did the place they used to call Harper? Did the place they used to call Zwedru? Did the place they used to call Vonderman? Wow.
So what from that era of the Tubman era that you still see today, besides corruption, as you said, and this whole big sharp business?
Corruption, the Masonic craft, these institutions are not very good institutions. That's just my personal opinion.
And why you say so?
They may do, because it's something that if we're all not from Nuku Town, we don't know each other. A man come from Sinko can never be part of us. So the way we interact with each other, you can see division. Only the survival of the fittest. So you got to know how to fight, or you got to be a calm, friendly guy that got some money in your pocket that to deal with people who can be potentially your enemy. And a little bit of social psychology.
Yeah.
You see, back in the days, when you living on Snapper Hill, and you come from certain families, and not all the crew family when you're going down to Johansson or Waterside, and not all the families that are living under those rises, you will be friendly with and know. And I even knew some Congo people who, because they were not part of the rich establishment, and even they were sidelined, like my grandfather's family, they were also sidelined because my grandfather was only a what we call, you know what a boat swing is?
Boat swing? No.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, let me just say a little. We call it boat swing. A boat swing is a man who does repairs on a ship, in a ship.
Okay.
He does the welding. If you got old metallic to do and you need to fix it and put it together, you carry it to the boat swing.
Oh, okay.
The boat swing was something like the modern day welder.
Yeah.
Because he knew metallic, he knew how to use metal to patch up old tops, old guns, and things that were made of metal. Because we didn't have welding machines.
Right.
At least not in Liberia.
Mr. Cooper, there's a comment here from Fangai Basakai. Say we actually have 9 counties and 4 territories when he left Liberia in 1968. So in 1968, he said we already have 9 counties and 4 territories.
But what did I tell you? I told you that Tubman created those extra counties for us to say we got 9. I'm talking about in the 1950s and early 1960s, there wasn't 9 counties.
Okay.
So let him dispute that.
Okay.
Let him dispute that. He cannot dispute that. But that means he probably doesn't know Liberia very well. He left 1968. At the same time, people like my oldest cousins and those kind of people came to America.
Okay.
Today you go to them, you would think that they're Americans, but I just look at all of them and laugh.
Right. And then somebody's trying to also think about the Yakpawolo story.
Yakpawolo.
Umo say, if my memory serves me right, Yakpawolo killed his wife because his boss man slept with her, and they were after him, and that was how he went in the bush.
Okay. I don't know the details, but when I was speaking, if you got me on recording, you will find out that I said Yakpawolo had killed his wife, and then he killed somebody else, and then the Liberian government wanted to arrest him.
Right.
In the process of arresting him, because he was a good hunter, he evaded them for a long time, because this saga happened for a couple of days, maybe even weeks.
Yeah.
But what was written in the newspaper, the big title on the front page cover was "The Desperado." So anybody say they come from Liberia, just ask them, you ever knew about the Desperado? Now when you read the story, then that when you get to know that Yakpawolo. But those days I was small boy, I didn't know what a desperado meant. But my dad used to say, that. And around maybe 6 o'clock, because those days we had Liberian Standard Time. So I think at 6 o'clock, oh man, we gone, everybody going inside. But the men were operating way in Firestone, not in Monrovia.
Yeah. That's
how much the fear captured the country.
Right.
Yakpawolo. That's what
I remember Dr. Joseph Baba also wrote that on a post one time that Yakpawolo killed his wife due to jealousy, and then he went into hiding.
Exactly. He went into hiding. But because he had already, in those days in Liberia, when you kill one person, if it were now a Masonic or some boyo, where they consider boyo something, that was a serious. But man, in Liberia those days, to show you that Liberia is a good country, we should go to love each other. Liberia was a country where we were one. We didn't know who was crying. We didn't know who was Pele. We didn't know. We just coexisted.
Yeah. But you mentioned Masonic craft, and you mentioned boyo, and you mentioned killing. Talk to me what you heard or saw about boyo or Masonic craft. What evil or what you keep referring to the Masonic craft? What did they wrong?
When I was a small kid, and any member of the Masonic craft passing around in a uniform all we knew there were people who were indulged into ritualistic killing. So if I was standing in my yard and we saw an old character that I knew as a small boy, we used to call him Old Man Miller. He had a mulatto man with long beard. but he was a big Masonic craftsman. I'm not saying that he personally was a ritualistic to do, but we children that grew up, we associated the Masonic craft with ritualistic killing and those type of things.
Right. Could that be a misconception, or?
It could be, but we had to hear it from people who were elders and sort of knew something that was happening.
Okay.
So by the time I grew up, yes, there been a lot of Boyo cases where people who were indulging it were part of the Masonic. Let's take, for instance, the Anderson case that Toba hung Anderson and Yancey and all those people. They were all Masonic craft people, but I'm not saying it was based on Masonic craft that they did it. But what I grew up learning is the Masonic craft had one way or the other culturally tied in with people that were immigrating from places like Mali and all the things. If they wanted the power, the political power to be strong, those were the things these Mali men requested of them. So they will kill people. They will kill people and take their past and carry it.
If you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are in discussion with Mr. Donald John Cooper, walking us through some oral history, things that happened in Liberia. And we are in the period 1963 to 1971. Were there some music at that time that you remember? Some so-called game, as I said. Who were some of the artists?
Yes. Who were some of the what?
Artists.
The great Yata Zoo, the great Sylvester Thomas, and the Melody Maker. Then my uncle and my father that I got to know about the Greenwood Singers, because when the Greenwood Singers were playing, even my oldest brother wasn't born. You know what I'm saying? But my uncle used to be a clarinetist in that group. And mostly people like them, it's not like in modern day Liberia where they went to Nimba to go play, or to Bonkade or to Bassa to go play. They were all playing right in Monrovia to what today we call nightclub. But they weren't called nightclubs today, but they were just dancing places. Those days, they when they play radio or they play the record player, it's not something like how in a disco. No, they play and women dress their best, and guys that have people phone their wives. And they went to places like Mama Arena and all those places to go look for girlfriends and to the dance. We used to call it going to the dance. Yeah, going to the dance.
Okay.
The people here in America know about that. They did it here in the 40s and the 50s. People like Louis Armstrong, they used to be playing. Go in New York, the top clubs the top clubs in America, like the Soho and places where great American artists like Duke Ellington, they used to play in places where people just go to see people dancing, like American, like Black Americans. That was the same thing happening in Liberia too. If you wanted to find a nice chick that you went to school with, or she used to go to school but pass through your yard to go to school, you had to go to the dance. That way you may meet her or invite her to the dance. When you say invite to the nightclub, no. That people like us grew up knowing anything like nightclub, no. But when my pa and my mom were hanging up, they call it going to the dance. And one of the top clubs at that time was a place called Mama Arena.
Mama Arena. Wow.
Yeah, and Mama Arena is the place I'm describing to you, right? Where that bridge crossing over Randolph Street, the Bank of Monrovia is sitting right there. The big building today that I don't know some Indian people, I know the family who got those properties now, but I'm just telling you, they used to have a German bakery under there. We used to call it Mama Arena, or Italian bakery, wherever. But that was where we used to buy our nice French bread and all the top Western European type of bakery stuff.
Yeah. Was that around that same time Wani Boto was playing Sam K.
Okay, beautiful. Now you're bringing me to people like Wani Boto, Garrison Sako, Jate. That time the Jate guy I talking about used to play for a team, the oldest team in Liberia called Bame.
Yeah.
You ever heard about Bame?
Yeah, Bama is the crew team.
Okay, I even went and was a sightseer at the death. I mean, at the funeral of this guy who was playing for Bama. He was a damn good player. That's when I got to know that when crew people burying, there's something, the casket, they were told the casket, and you see the casket dancing.
Yeah.
On the head, yeah. Yeah, that's where I saw all those things from. And where I was living, that's where 2 or 3 players were living right behind my house, between Broad Street and Ashmore Street, but behind my grandfather's house. That's where people like Garrison Saka, George Saka, they all used to come there to visit one of their friends, and when they be passing, then my oldest brother, my oldest uncle, a cousin, then they be telling me, oh, yeah, at Garrison Saka, there's a George Saka there.
You heard about the crew? You heard about the crew warrior called Joan Nimle?
In which time were you talking about? The Nimle guy said.
No, Joan Nimle. That was from Southtown, but that should be way before 1963. But let me ask a question here from the comments here from Sam Wallow. Say, can the guest? You saying something?
No, I said go ahead.
Can the guest make the connection between Tubman's destructive presidency and how his shredding of Liberia's good governance structure, constitution, and democratic norms have continued to undermine the country's ability to function even after 50 years after his death?
Very simply, according to me, from what I observed as I grew and get to learn how to read and write better, and read politics and read, I'm a student of people like Nkrumah. I'm a student of people like great writers and great great revolutionaries. Che Guevara, I've read a lot of their books, and I got to decipher in my head. But why good government work? I just found out that if I compare Tubman and Tauber, one of the best modern day presidents we ever had. I'm not saying it because he's a Congo man, but the vision that Tauber had for Liberia was way better than the vision that Tubman had for Liberia. Tubman had a Lord temper to do. Tauber didn't have that because Tauber, one of the first men that I saw send people like George Bullard and to Dade County in America, even the Bacchus Mafia.
We'll get to the Tauber era. Now let's stay with Tubman.
So Tubman was just a dictator without any vision. Because when I grew up, and when I was growing up from Snapper Hill, when you want to go to 12th Street to where they got Cooper Clinic, you know the only road you can pass to go there?
No.
You got to pass Ken Johnson Road in front of the mansion. There was no bypass, capital bypass with no wide roads. No, there was no. I saw them build a bypass. I saw them build capital bypass. And when you get to Cinco, today where they got an election commission used to be, the United States Agency for International Development called USAID. You know where it used to be before?
No, and I'm not Monrovia boy like you.
No, you're from Liberia, my friend. I'm here. Yeah. I'm maybe a little older. I'm just talking about Monrovia because it's something like my mother. That's all.
My grandmother will be on God, but let me ask you this. You know, most of the main president, like Tubman, they say Tubman used to hear about what we call today infidelity. Tubman having outside children, get girlfriend outside.
But that is something that is endemic in Liberia. If the native chief can have 27 children from 9 different wives, why Tubman again have it to do what? Even though I can see the contradiction between religion and practice, social practice. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But that is endemically an African. It happens in Ivory Coast. It happens all over Africa. Africa is just a male-dominated society, period.
So what you heard about Tubman concerning that?
Man, come on, man. Tubman was one of the biggest womanizers. At least as far as I know. I'm not saying he wasn't married. He didn't, but Tubman children most of Tubman children I know, not I can't count 5, but then I have one mother. And I don't say that in a condescending way,
right?
Because I'm nobody to judge another person, but I'm telling you, this is an African practice. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just that they mix up Christianity. You know, they mix up Christianity with our natural African traditions.
So
and that don't work.
Somebody asking say some people say Wani Boto did not really exist. It was a myth.
No, Wani Boto was a real man that lived. And I got two oldest brothers that even went to see him play on Antoinette Tubman Stadium. He was a small looking crew guy, but he could dribble. He was really a Ghanaian that came to Liberia. Somebody brought him to Liberia to play for Adabaro or I. In fact, someone brought him to Liberia to play for the Lone Star. But today, Opon, when I look at Opon London, Opon don't know what people like us are be thinking. It just reminds me of people like Wani Boto.
Yeah.
He was a Ghana crew boy.
Right. That's what I learned. That he actually was a crew from a crew family living in Ghana. And when I went to Ghana, and the times I lived in Ghana, that's why I discovered what Liberians who were living in Ghana, what the Ghanaian people know them, what the profession was. Have you ever heard what the profession was? In Ghana?
Yeah.
Most of the people that went there were on the ship, and so they were doing these kind of menial jobs. So they say they used to be the one that cleaning the toilets.
But they were not on, back in those days, that thing you're talking about, they were on a ship. It sounds almost like my experience of the people that left from Monrovia in exile on a ship and they stopped in Ghana and some of them went to no. That's not how Liberia and Ghana used to operate.
Okay.
Ghana was like America, or the doorway to get to America. I mean, not Ghana, Liberia was. So Ghanaians who came and taught men like me in my early days in school, and other older guys, and even some of them taught some of my father, they were finding ways to come to America or to come to somewhere that was better than they came from. Because remember now, by the time the 60s started, Liberia was really the only independent free African country. Even Ethiopia, they were going through problems, even though the Emperor Haile Selassie were big men there, but they had problems with the Italians. But Liberia was a place where I never, in 1990, before I saw foreign troops on our ground. When my father graduated from CWA, the only foreign troops that ever set foot on Liberia was the American Marines that they sent to the black corps of American soldiers that worked at Roberts Field and built Roberts Field just to supply the North African war theater during World War II.
So many things. Liberia had boxers too that time, major boxers and other athletes.
Way back, we used to have a guy called Baby Joe Bokar. You got to ask people that older than me for them to know who Baby Joe Bokar was. One of West Africa's top boxers. But you see, because Liberia, Bella Tubman didn't put money and put attention into developing sports and sportsmen. We just wanted when Liberia play, Lone Star win, then we all drink beer and we look for women and we dance and we shoot firecracker and all that. That's all. But there was no investment, because that's why I say that was the difference between Tubman and people like Torba. Torba had a little bit more vision. And that's why I like Dover. Dover took sports on another level. That's why today we got open weir.
So let's conclude on Tubman. What would you say, General, is the impact of the Tubman regime on the development of Liberia? And you say the Liberian character. What was the impact?
I think corruption. Corruption and what we call you know, when you got a group where only if we didn't come from the same area, Nuku Town, where I know your pa, you know my pa, I know your ma, you know my ma, I know your auntie, and we know each other. We all went to the same school. For us to have a template by which we operate. That is the bad part that Tubman continued after people like Barclay King and all those people. He continued and he exacerbated it. When a president should be working in his country, developing the country, Tubman would take in a 2 month vacation on a yacht to go to places like in West Africa and other places to show off. When the son Hart, Tubman and Maggie Shee and all these big people, they wearing the type of suit that you wear to a dinner, to a big gala or dinner. That's why Professor Gus Lebanon of Indiana State University wrote a very, very disparaging book about Liberia, and that is something people should read too. You ever heard about the great professor they call Gus Lebanon?
No.
Okay, go and do your research on it. I'm not here to
why?
teach you.
We already here for the show, so why you want to put me through another research? Just tell me.
Well, whoever is here, I'm telling them, let them go and research for Indiana State University professor called Gus Lebanon.
Yeah, Indiana State have a lot of things on Liberia.
Say that again?
I said Indiana State have a lot of resources on Liberia if you go on their website.
Well, whatever it is, go and read Gus Lebanon book on his experiences in Liberia. Go and read on a guy that America sent, a black American guy. They sent that in the 40s somewhere, or in the 20s or something, when Firestone was starting. He wrote a damning critique on Liberia too, because he was very, very encouraged to be given that diplomatic position to come to Liberia to team up with black Africans, and only he found out that the way the Congo people had what they call government, in a way, I'm not saying all was bad, but a lot was bad, because with me, if I were ever a politician, the first thing I would concentrate on is the human resources of the people. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what village you come from. Once you can exhibit the ability to learn, that is where the power of any great nation comes from.
Mr. Cooper, you keep making reference to Congo man. Who you call a Congo man?
Say that again?
Who is a Congo man?
No, the term Congo man comes from a situation where when the American forces stopped some ships that were coming from places like Cameroon and all those places that were slaves to bring to America, by that time, America had joined England. Not Americans, but the British and the Portuguese and all these people were still bringing slaves and selling them.
Right. No, I get that history part. But when you say Congo man in Liberia, who are you referring to?
But that's why I'm trying to tell you where the name comes from.
I know where the name comes from, but is that a group of Liberians who call that today?
Today, when you hear anybody say Congo man, they're trying to refer to the settler group of blacks that came from America to settle in Liberia. And once you look well off, today they can even identify some of the indigenous boys who are very educated, and their children were even born in America, and they go back and they don't have no traditional practice in the activities or actions that you may think some of the people would think that he's a Congo man. So you see, it's a lack of education that caused people to formulate these type of ideas, and these ideas they give birth to division. They give birth to more backwardness and we can't afford that as a people.
Right. No, we can. All right, Mr. Cooper, this is day one of our series on Liberian oral history, and I think we are on the right direction. We'll be closing the broadcast tonight. We're expecting callers. No one call. I mean, they they're making comments though, so that's good. But
I don't care about comments. Once you don't clean any falsehood about what I said, I'm fine with it. That's what a real educated man. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid of comment.
No, we let our viewers to interact. So we read their comments, and we also, if they call in, to be a part of the discussion. But let me get your final comments as we try to close the broadcast tonight. I think this is a good discussion.
Well, you want to get my final comment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my final comment is the feeling I feel for Liberia is why I went into music and art. I don't have a whole lot of songs, but the few songs I've written, I wrote it out of deep sense of poetry, history, and truth. So I have a whole lot of songs which I have not released yet. They are still in my library that I'm waiting for the day to go and release it. And the day I release it, maybe I'll be dead, but I'm very sure that it will live long after me. So my only advice I got to Liberians, let's stop all this nonsense about I know too much, and intellect. Being an intellect is very deeper than a lot of people see. When you got doctorate degree, it don't mean that you know everything more than other people.
No.
That one of the things we need to put one aside. But you must talk reason, or what we call sense. If you don't talk sense, I don't care how much book you know, you can never scare me. You got to talk reasoning, real reasoning, because that's how God made human beings. To reason. So we should learn to not put each other down. We learn to be together. But if we want to discuss anything, even if somebody criticizes you, it's better for you to ask that person a question than to be carried away by your emotions and feel that just because the man criticizes you, won't show that he knows much. But asking a question, maybe he's not able to even justify what he said.
That's true.
Then you put them one side, when I say you put them one side, then you go above the God. Bishop Obama say, when they go low, we go high. That's the only thing. We must learn to live together. And the only way to learn to live together is to be reasonable with each other in a way that we can discuss our problems and how to solve them. That's why I like art, and that's why I like music, because that's the only area I think I can contribute to that will sort of send a message of what I really mean deep down in my soul, than to send and write a big political term paper and make big speeches that got no real reasoning after it has been, it has been dissected by people who think. So if Liberia can only do that, and we can learn to donate towards teaching our young children the history of the country and the essence of living in peace in a real way, we have a great country, because I know our country is great, because I know many great people that came from there, not personally or totally personally, but I've read a whole lot of people. Many people don't know that the first English novel that was ever written by a Black African was a guy from Liberia, a bastard guy. Do you know that?
I know of Liberia having writing the first novel. That was in the 19th century, I believe.
Yes. And what was his name? Or what was the name of the novel, in fact? Forget about his name. What was the name of his novel?
I don't remember. Go ahead. You can share if you know.
I'm going to tell you. The name of the novel was The main character in it was called Gaya. Gaya, this guy was a bad guy, vaga, but he was brought here by missionaries in the 1800s, and he went to a university called to a college called Oberlin College, and he wrote that story, the story of Gaya Paul. When I say Paul, not Paul, Pau. And that story is the first English novel that was written by an African, any African. I've forgotten the guy's name, but I have it. Next time I will give you more information on it. It's a beautiful story. Go and read that story. And the story is basically about that was the first man that started talking about women's rights. From the story he wrote, it was based on his experience in how a girl didn't want to be given out to a man by her parents who was a chief, but that was the tradition. An ugly guy she wanted a guy, she didn't want a guy, and her saga was the story that he wrote about how she escaped from the village. Go and read that story.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Cooper.
My pleasure, sir. My pleasure.
We'll do this again. We'll continue with the next time will be on the 1971 to 1980.
Anything, anytime, my brother. I just hope I satisfy your interest. That's all.
Yeah, and it's very important that we do these things, and because of you spark the interest of other people. We see people are now coming and say, "Oh yes, we can talk there," because when we say history, it's not only about people that went to study history. If you were there, there, you can come up and say, like for instance, I was there during the war. I can tell my story, and that makes history.
When we get to that,
we do this.
When we get to that part, when I start telling you my experiences, then I want you to know that I am a product. I'm a real product of. Well, I came to America in 1999 when I was 40 years old, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
So who going to tell me about Liberia?
All right. So we want to really appreciate your time and
my pleasure, my brother, my utmost pleasure, and may God bless you and bless all your guests. And I hope I could be of some service to my people and to Liberia. That's all.
Definitely.
I'm not an educated man. I'm just telling you that we're drinking beer.
And really, that's what we want to do. Even though I know you are educated, because the things that are coming from you, it can come from someone who's not educated. But that's another story. But that's the whole point. We want people to be able to come and share their experiences, because the Liberia we are trying to rebuild, should be done by all of us. We should contribute expertise from whatever area we have little leverage, so that we can be able to share it.
Right, and the only way we can do it, unless we don't be preconceiving the idea of being Lord over the other person, but to be a servant of the next man.
On that note, we want to thank all our viewers for spending their time with us. We, again, appreciate your time. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Visit our website, www.focusonliberia.net. Scroll down, support us also with whatever little thing you have through PayPal. We really, really appreciate it. We want to grow the network. We want to be able to do many other things. And it's only through your contributions that we can help do this. Again, we want to say thank you. We don't leave this place until we play our closing song, which says, "We are all Liberians."
Exactly.
And really, we at Focus on Liberia, we mean it from the bottom of our hearts, that we are all Liberians, regardless on how and when you came to Liberia, either from the ship or on foot, or whatever way you came. We all live in Liberia, and no matter the time, That's our country, and that's the only country we have. Together,
There you
we
go.
can make it that glorious land of liberty. On behalf of all of us here at Focus,
Liberia is our home. Liberia people.